Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. I'm your host, the Dividend Aristocrat, and today we're going to be taking a look at my dividend income for the month of January. This is the first month of dividend income for the new year, so I'm excited to get into this one. In this video, we'll take a brief look at my portfolio dashboard, taking a look at what has changed in my portfolio as a whole over the past month, and we'll also take a look at my purchases as well as my dividend history for this month. If you do enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing to the channel. I post weekly investing content as well as monthly dividend income updates. As a reminder, this is not financial advice and I'm just merely sharing my opinions on this channel. With that being said, let's take a look at my portfolio dashboard. In total, I've invested $37,175 and my portfolio value is at $51,574. That gives me a total return of 38.73% or an unrealized gain of $14,400. Now, since starting this portfolio, I have earned $1,463 worth of dividend income, and going forward, I'm projected to be earning $813 per year. Now, if you guys do remember, my goal for this year is to break the $1,000 mark in terms of projected annual dividend income. The current portfolio yield sits at 1.58% and my yield on cost sits at 2.19%. Now, I often get asked why my portfolio yield is so low, and that's because I prefer to be on the lower end because of both tax implications and also that my goal is total return in general. I think a higher dividend yield does not necessarily mean I'm going to have a higher total return. In total, I have 23 different holdings, down from 24 just a couple weeks ago, and if you guys want to check out my most recent sell in my portfolio, I'll pin that video right up here. My cash position currently sits at about $8,700 and I've been investing weekly into my portfolio. Now, the main thing we can take a look at here is this table right over here, and so it shows how much I invested and how much dividends I received every year since starting out this portfolio. So in 2020, we can see that I only received $12.45 worth of dividend income, and I also only invested $2,800. Now, fast forward to now, and we've only finished the first month of the year, and I've already invested $1,700 into the portfolio, and my dividend received is already $25.14, so it's already doubled my first year's worth of dividends. Now, in terms of amount invested, my goal is to invest $1,000 into the portfolio each month at a minimum, and with my current cash position at $8,700, I think we're going to be investing well over $1,000 per month this year. Just to clarify, I don't count my cash position as the amount that I've invested in the month, and I also don't count that into my portfolio value calculation right here. If I were to include my cash position in the portfolio value, it'd be closer to $60,000 worth of value. Now, my yearly dividend history over time can be seen in this graph right here, so 2025 actually still needs to be added to it. I forgot to update that, but we'll do that before the next video. Now, the graph to the right of it shows a similar picture, but it's the monthly breakdown instead, so it's a little bit more sporadic than the yearly breakdown. That's because on the months that my ETFs pay, both VOO and schd, my dividend income tends to be significantly higher. Now, in terms of the amount that I receive from each company, my biggest payer is VOO, and you can see that right here, followed by schd, which is trailing it very closely. After that, we have Altria Group, then Texas Instruments, then Booz Allen Hamilton, and then United Health. So before we get any further into the video, let's just take a look at my dividend income for the month of January. As you can see right here, I keep track of every single one of my dividends in this section in my order history tab of my spreadsheet. Now, January is actually not a very exciting month for me usually, and you can see right here the only company that paid me a dividend is Altria Group. They paid me a pretty large dividend actually at $25.14. Relative to the size of my position, this is a large dividend because they have a high dividend yield. Now, with that dividend, I had to automatically reinvest back into Altria Group, and that got me back half a share more. Now, although I don't count these into my dividend income calculations, I do still keep track of my money market dividends each month. So this month I got paid $36.34, and that's basically just interest on the money that's sitting in my account on the side. In total, I've earned about $700 so far from dividends from my money market fund, and I do use those to reinvest into my stocks as well. Now, in terms of buys this month, I went into more detail on every specific purchase and why I purchased each company in my previous video, which you guys can check out on the channel. But right here, I'll just briefly cover what I did this month. So this month, I implemented my weekly investing strategy into my ETFs, so schd and VOO, and I made sure to buy at least some shares of each of them each and every week of this month. Going forward this year, I'm going to continue this habit, and if there is a big dip in stock price, I'll probably just be loading up even more than I usually would. Now, my only two buys for individual holdings were Booz Allen Hamilton and Uber. I bought 2 more shares at $128 per share on the 28th of January for Booz Allen Hamilton, and I bought 10 more shares of Uber on the 30th of January, and that actually amounted to a $635 order. Now, I do want to briefly mention that Booz Allen Hamilton released earnings on Friday, and they released very strong earnings, so I was very happy with that. And their stock price did initially dip to about $121 per share, but I was actually a little bit busy, so I couldn't pick up any shares, unfortunately. By the end of the day, because of how good the earnings were, they actually rose all the way up to $129 per share. So unfortunately, that was a bit of a missed opportunity for me. I wasn't able to grab any on that discount, but I do hope the stock price continues to trend upwards over the next couple of months. Now, heads up with Uber. Uber is releasing earnings this upcoming week, so I'm excited to see how they do. If they do have any more discounts this week, kind of around $65 per share, I'll probably purchase a couple more shares because I have some strong faith in this company right now, and we'll see if I'm proven wrong. Hopping into my portfolio holdings section, we can just take a brief look at Altria Group. I always like to cover the stocks that pay me a dividend each month. So right here we can see that my average price paid was $43.29 and the current price is at $52.23. Now Altria Group has performed pretty well this year and has had some nice stock price appreciation. So my total return is actually at 37.85% or a $360 gain on the position. I initially only purchased 22 shares, but because of reinvesting those large dividends, I currently own 25.135 shares, and it's going to keep compounding over time as I continue to reinvest my dividends. In total, I have earned $145 worth of dividend income, and my yearly dividend per stock is $4.08. My annual payout for my 25 shares is $102.55. The current yield sits at 7.81%, but since I bought it on a discount, the yield on cost is actually 9.43%, so I'm getting close to that 10% yield on cost, which is awesome. My current allocation is about 2.5% and I'm comfortable with it where it's at. I don't want to hold too much of this company because I don't think it's going to have the best total return over time, but between 2 and 3% is pretty strong. So taking a look at my monthly breakdown section, it just shows how much I invested each month and how much dividends I received, and that's for each year I've invested so far. And this graph right here just graphs all that information. It's the same information we saw on my portfolio dashboard page. So as the year goes on, this is going to fill out automatically as I continue to invest and receive more dividends, and I'm hoping that by December we'll be able to beat the record set in December of 2024. And right here, we can take a look at my dividend calendar. It's not as exciting as it usually is because we just started out the year, but as the year goes on, it's going to get filled out very nicely and it's going to be much more interesting to take a look at. So as you can see, the dividend calendar is actually smaller than last year, and that's because I currently have less dividend holdings than I did last year. Now, if I buy any more dividend stocks or any companies that aren't currently paying a dividend decide to announce a new dividend, I'll add them in here so we can see them as well. So far this year, I only have Altria Group, and you can see right here that it sums how much Altria Group has paid me across the entire year. And then right here, we have the sum for how much it paid me in that month. In this bottom right quarter, we have the totals, and over time, you'll see what I mean as it starts to develop and take shape. Now the next thing I want to take a look at is my future value calculator, and this helps project my future expected value of my spreadsheet over certain periods of time. If you guys want to try this future value calculator for yourself and you haven't yet done so, just go join my Patreon. It's currently free and you can download this future value calculator for yourself to try out for free. So what you can see right here is my starting principal is my current portfolio value at $51,574, and my annual contribution is how much I'm expecting to be investing each year into the portfolio. My annual dividend yield is the current dividend yield for the portfolio, and my expected dividend increase and expected price appreciation can be changed to whatever I think makes the most amount of sense. So for expected dividend increase, I think we could put 7% because I've recently been having some higher dividend increases than before. And for price appreciation, let's put it a little bit closer to 10%. Maybe we can do 9% for today's example. So after 10 years, my portfolio value is expected to be about $292,000, but that's not as interesting. Let's take a look at the 30-year time frame, which is more realistic for a lot of people. After 30 years, my portfolio value would be about $2.6 million, taking these assumptions into consideration, and my dividend income per year would be about $20,000. By that point, I would have earned and reinvested $235 worth of dividend income back into the portfolio itself. Now, some people have longer time frames and they're able to hold out for 40 years. If you're able to do so, you can see how quickly it compounds. Now our expected value is $6.8 million, which is just absolutely absurd. And before we end this video, let's take a look at some of the financial metrics for Altria Group. So right here, we can see the price graph, and we can see that over the past 10 years, the stock price has not done so well. Now, since its peak, the stock price has declined pretty significantly, but in the past couple of years, we have seen some stronger price performance, especially this past year. Now, over time, if Altria Group does not diversify and innovate, they're going to have a very hard time continuing to grow, and that's because their sales volume overall is going down, especially for their cigarettes. Now, their pay ratio is currently pretty high at 83.38%, but I'm not very concerned about that. Management has indicated they want to pay out a majority of their earnings through dividends, and that's how they want to reward their shareholders. Now, the company has been doing share buybacks, which is good to see, and because of that, the revenue per share and their free cash flow per share have actually been trending upwards over time. Now, their earnings per share have not been as consistent with a negative year in 2019, but since then it's rebounded pretty nicely. Now, the free cash flow versus stock-based compensation graph looks almost the same as the free cash flow per share, and that makes sense. The one thing I want to take a look at here is how big stock-based compensation is compared to free cash flow. Now, in this case, stock-based compensation is just a very small amount, so it's not concerning to me. It's not really eating into their free cash flow. The dividend per share has been able to increase over time, and Altria Group is actually a dividend king, meaning that they've paid out more than 50 years of consecutive dividend income with growing dividends each year. And the last thing we could take a look at here is their net income margins, and because of their pricing power for their tobacco products, their net income is actually pretty high, which I like to see. As always, that does bring us to the end of today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at my portfolio and seeing which companies paid me a dividend this month. Now, I know that this month was not as exciting in terms of dividend income, especially compared to some previous months like December, because I only had one dividend payment this month, but the next month should be much more interesting than this. If you guys did make it all the way to the end of the video, let me know what dividend payments you received for this month. I'm sure you guys probably got a larger dividend payment than I did. If you haven't yet checked out my most recent upload, definitely give it some love. I posted in the middle of the week this month, and usually YouTube is not as kind to those videos. In that video, I covered 3 stocks that I've been buying recently, and if you want to check out which stock I've been selling recently, check out this video right here. Remember, the best time to invest was 10 years ago, the second best time is today. I want to thank every single one of you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.